was grilled by Democrats during her Senate confirmation hearings, and I'm glad that they were tough on her because not only is she grossly unqualified to be the education secretary and presumably was only nominated by Donald Trump because she's friends with Donald Trump and is a billionaire who donated to him, she's also someone who holds some political positions that are just downright appalling and would be detrimental to the education of American children. Now, to give you an example of this, she previously stated, quote, "There are not enough philanthropic dollars in America to fund what is currently the need in education versus what is currently being spent every year on education in this country. Our desire is to confront the culture in ways that will continue to advance God's kingdom." So she wants the American education system to mirror the, quote, education system that you see in places like Saudi Arabia, where you indoctrinate children into a religion and you don't actually teach them facts. No thank you, Betsy. Now, I think Democrats were pretty hard on her, and I was really proud of them for doing this. But when it comes to Bernie Sanders, he took it to a whole new level. So Bernie Sanders calmly and politely crushed her soul.
Mrs. DeVos, there is a growing fear, I think, in this country that we are moving toward what some would call an oligarchic form of society, where a small number of very, very wealthy billionaires control, to a significant degree, our economic and political life. Would you be so kind as to tell us how much money your family has contributed to the Republican Party over the years?
Senator, first of all, thank you for that question. Again, was pleased to meet you in your office last week. I wish I could give you that number. I don't know.
I have heard the number was $200 million. Does that sound in the ballpark?
Collectively, between
over
my
the years,
entire
yes.
family, that's possible.
Okay. My question is, and I don't mean to be rude, but do you think if you were not a multi-billionaire, if your family has not made hundreds of millions of dollars of contributions to the Republican Party, that you would be sitting here today?
Senator, as a matter of fact, I do think that there would be that possibility. I've worked very hard on behalf of parents and children for the last almost 30 years to be a voice for parents and voice for students and to empower parents to make decisions on behalf of their children, primarily low-income children.
Thank you. Will you work with me and others to make public colleges and universities tuition-free through federal and state efforts?
Well, Senator, I think that's a really interesting idea, and it's really great to consider and think about. But I think we also have to consider the fact that there's nothing in life that's truly free. Somebody's going to pay for it. And so,
yes, you're right. You're right.
So
Somebody will pay for it, but that takes us to another issue.
I think
and that is, if I may,
yeah.
and that is right now we have proposals in front of us to substantially lower tax breaks for billionaires in this country, while at the same time low-income kids can't afford to go to college. Do you think that makes sense?
Senator, I think if your question is really around how can we help college and higher education be more affordable for young people as they anticipate.
Actually, that wasn't my question. My question is, should we make public colleges and universities tuition-free so that every family in America, regardless of income, will have the ability to have their kids get a higher education? That was my question.
Senator, I think we can work together, and we could work hard on making sure that college or higher education in some form is affordable for all young people that want to pursue it.
Bernie Sanders is proving that he is a savage. Now, getting to what she actually said, she's so rich that she doesn't even know how much her family collectively contributed to the Republican Party. So she thinks maybe $200 million, give or take. I think that sounds like a plausible amount to donate, or that we did donate. So you're honestly admitting to us that you're so rich, you have no idea whether or not $200 million was given to a party or not? Okay, if you have that much money, maybe it's the case that you're just a little bit out of touch with the average American. maybe you shouldn't be the education secretary because you have no experience here. Now, she also said that she's not in favor of making public colleges and universities tuition free. And she said, quote, nothing in life is truly free. And she said, somebody's got to pay for it. And Bernie Sanders brilliantly said, yeah, you're right. You're going to pay for it because we're going to tax billionaires like you who are greedy, and you are going to fund the tuition of average Americans. I think that's pretty reasonable. I mean, they get tax breaks, they get bailed out when the economy is in ruins. So why can't they bail us out and pay for our education? Now, there were other portions of her confirmation hearing that were just utterly absurd. So when it comes to the question as to whether she would allow guns in schools, she said, well, we probably should keep guns in schools because bears.
You can't say definitively today that guns shouldn't be in schools?
Well, I will refer back to Senator Enzi and the school that he was talking about in Wapiti, Wyoming. I think probably there, I would imagine that there's probably a gun in the school to protect from potential grizzlies.
What the hell did you just say?
Yeah, she wasn't joking there. She wasn't being tongue-in-cheek. She said schools should have guns because of bears. Our next possible education secretary, ladies and gentlemen. Now, also, I wanted to highlight some brazen instances of hypocrisy because she claimed to be in favor of LGBT equality, yet she's contributed millions of dollars to vehemently anti-gay organizations like Focus on the Family. Take a look.
Ms. DeVos, your family has a long history of supporting anti-LGBT causes, including donating millions of dollars to groups that push conversion therapy, the practice of trying to change someone's sexual orientation or gender identity. For example, you and your family have given over $10 million to Focus on the Family, an organization that currently states on its website that, quote, homosexual strugglers can and do change their sexual behavior and identity. Mrs. DeVos, conversion therapy has been widely discredited and rejected for decades by every mainstream medical and mental health organization as neither medically nor ethically appropriate. It has been shown to lead to depression, anxiety, drug use, homelessness, and suicide, particularly in LGBT youth. In fact, many of the leaders and founders of conversion therapy, including both religious ministries and mental health professionals, have not only publicly renounced it, but have issued formal apologies for their work and how harmful it has been to the individuals involved. Mr. Chairman, I would ask that this be included in the record.
It will be.
Mrs. DeVos, do you still believe in conversion therapy?
Franken, I've never believed in that. First of all, let me say I fully embrace equality, and I believe in the innate value of every single human being, and that all students, no matter their age, should be able to attend a school and feel safe and be free of discrimination. So let's start there. And let me just say that your characterization of contributions, I don't think accurately reflects those of my family. I would hope that you wouldn't include other family members beyond my core family.
Now, finally, even though we've all been disappointed in Elizabeth Warren lately, I couldn't help but enjoy her make a complete and utter fool out of Betsy DeVos.
Mrs. DeVos, do you have any direct experience in running a bank?
Senator, I do not.
Have you ever managed or overseen a $1 trillion loan program?
I have not.
How about a $1 billion loan program?
I have not.
Okay, so no experience in managing a program like this. How about participating in one? I think it's important for the person who is in charge of our financial aid programs to understand what it's like for students and their families who are struggling to pay for college. Mrs. DeVos, have you ever taken out a student loan from the federal government to help pay for college?
I have not.
Have any of your children had to borrow money in order to go to college?
They have been fortunate not to.
Have you had any personal experience with a Pell Grant?
Not personal experience, but certainly friends and students with whom I've worked.
So you have no personal experience with college financial aid or management of higher education. Mrs. DeVos, then let's start with the basics. Do you support protecting federal taxpayer dollars from waste, fraud, and abuse?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. So do I. Because now we all know that President-elect Trump's experience with higher education was to create a fake university, which resulted in his paying a $25 million to students that he cheated. So I'm curious about how the Trump administration would protect against waste, fraud, and abuse at similar for-profit colleges. So here's my question. How do you plan to protect taxpayer dollars from waste, fraud, and abuse by colleges that take in millions of dollars in federal student aid?
Senator, if confirmed, I will certainly be very vigilant.
Yeah, I'm asking
people,
how. How are you going to do that? You said you're committed.
The individuals with whom I work in the department will ensure that federal monies are used properly and appropriately, and I will look forward to working with you.
So you're going to subcontract making sure that what happened with universities that cheat students doesn't happen anymore?
No, I didn't say
You're going
that.
to give that to someone else to do? I just want to know what your ideas are for making sure we don't have problems with waste, fraud, and abuse.
I want to make sure we don't have problems with that as well. And
Well,
if
here-
confirmed, I will work diligently to ensure that we are addressing any of those issues.
Well, let me make a suggestion on this. It actually turns out that there are a whole group of rules that are already written and are there, and all you have to do is enforce them. So what I want to know is, will you commit to enforcing these rules to ensure that no career college receives federal funds unless they can prove that they are actually preparing their students for gainful employment and not cheating them?
Senator, I will commit to ensuring that institutions which receive federal funds are actually serving their students well.
And so you will enforce the gainful employment rule to make sure that these career colleges are not cheating students?
We will certainly review that rule.
You'll
and
review
see that,
it? You will not
and
commit
see
to
that
enforce it?
And see that it is actually achieving what the intentions are.
I don't understand about reviewing it. We talked about this in my office. There are already rules in place to stop waste, fraud, and abuse, and I don't understand how you cannot be sure about enforcing them. You know, swindlers and crooks are out there doing backflips when they hear an answer like this. If confirmed, you will be the cop on the beat, and if you can't commit to use the tools that are already available to you in the Department of Education, then I don't see how you can be the Secretary of Education.
So make no mistake, I've had my criticisms of Elizabeth Warren in the past, but what she did there was brilliant. She got Betsy DeVos to implicitly admit that she's not qualified to be the education secretary, that she doesn't have the experience to be the education secretary. And I thought it was brilliant, and you could really see it on her face that she knew she was being cornered, and she had no idea how to back herself out of said corner. I loved it. And it was weird that she wouldn't commit to enforcing the gainful employment rule, which prevents for-profit colleges from basically ripping students off. And as education secretary, you would expect someone to be on the side of the students, right? On the side of the people who are pursuing an education, but clearly she's a billionaire. She has businesses, so she's on the side of the for-profit colleges who rip students off. They defraud students. And this has been a phenomenon that's been occurring for decades in the country, and we need an education secretary who's going to stomp on these idiots, who's going to crush them if they're going to rip off the American people. If you're not actually going to educate people and give them the skills that they need, if you're just going to take their money and then rip them off, that's unacceptable. You're defrauding them. So Betsy DeVos, however, is not saying that she's going to prevent this from happening. And Elizabeth Warren made the point that when you do this, you know, all the swindlers, they do backflips, and she's 100% right there. So shout out to Elizabeth Warren for impressing me again, but I'm going to need to see more. But nonetheless, that was brilliant. So, I mean, in the end, I can't see how she can possibly be the Secretary of Education, not just because she has reprehensible fundamentalist evangelical views, but also because she has zero experience whatsoever. So Betsy, why don't you do us all a favor and go back to one of your many mansions? Stop trying to get involved with government. You have no idea what you're doing. You're an oligarch. Just enjoy your life, enjoy your money, go back to your mansions and leave us alone. Stay out of government. We don't need you. We don't want you here.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.